Welcome back to the Mass Business Podcast. My name is Matt Ward. This is season 2, episode 3. I got a great guest for you. It's Katie Johnson. Katie is a life and business coach with Coaching to Inspire. She helps entrepreneurs tame the chaos so they can do more of what they love, and helping stay-at-home parents design the life they and their families love. Katie has over 20 years of business experience prior to becoming a coach. Her favorite part of coaching is seeing her clients move from overwhelmed with the sheer number of decisions they have to make daily to finding rhythms that allow them to live intentionally. I met Katie through networking. You're going to love it. She loves networking. And if you decide to network with her, you're going to have to ask her about her favorite homemade strawberry ice cream. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Mass Business Podcast, where small business owners, also known as risk takers, share their stories about the growth of their business and themselves. Our interviews and our content is focused on growing a small business and understanding networking and referrals. I say it all the time, and I'll say it again today. You never know where your next referral will come from. There it is. We are here with Katie Johnson. We're high-fiving the world. How are you, Katie?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
Absolutely. Well, in a quick, short bit of 30 seconds or less, share with the listening audience on their favorite podcast app or those watching on YouTube what exactly it is that you do at Coaching to Inspire.
Yeah, so I have the immense privilege of walking alongside people as they look to grow. And so I help them make decisions and to do so intentionally so that they're moving to where they want to go and not just living in reaction to everything that's happening around them.
And like that, there's so much there to unpack, right? Because I mean, I met you through networking, and there's some massive value there around this decision-making thing. One of the things I've always said for a very, very long time is that when business owners make quick decisions, they leave themselves enough time to pivot if they made the wrong decision. But if they wait, they run out of time in a lot of cases and don't have time to pivot. Are you seeing that with a lot of small business owners as well?
I do, very much. So when we get stuck in reaction mode, we stop thinking about with the long term and with the big picture in mind. It's just this whatever's in front of us, and we react to that and react to the next thing. And then we get down the road and we're like, wait, how did I end up here? Whereas when you're able to kind of step back and be in that more intentional space, and look at what am I trying to do? Where am I trying to go? Keep those vision and values in front of you. You can make quicker decisions because you know you have that conviction of like, this is the direction that I think I need to go, and I think this is going to get me there. But then you can also evaluate kind of as you go a lot faster. And so you can make a decision if it's the wrong one. You can just, okay, that didn't go where I thought it was going to go. Where am I off base? How can I adjust this decision to get back on course?
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's a big, it's a powerful thing to learn, right? And unfortunately, we need a lot of at-bats for these things. We need to have history behind our side to really push us in the right direction, I think, so that we can learn the struggles and the challenges of making the wrong decisions or not making them quickly or things like that. Now, you're fairly new in business, but not new to business, right? How long have you had your coaching practice or been in business?
So officially, I've been in business just over a year. I launched in July of 2020. I did about 2 years of unofficial coaching before that, but really officially launched my business.
Look at that. The pandemic birthed the business.
It did.
So not every business closed during the pandemic, right? I mean, it's one that's launching and thriving right now. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And so you're really in these early stages of business. And I've always
Yeah.
said that, people leave the corporate world starting to start a new business because they want three things. They want more money, more time, and more freedom. And
Yeah.
oftentimes in the early stages, we don't get those three things. We just don't because we're running around, we're chasing putting out so many fires.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel, where are you at with your business? I guess this is the question I'm asking is where are you at? Like, do you feel clear on where you're going and all the systems and processes you have in place? Or are you still at that mode where you're just trying to optimize things and improve things and get things up and running and things like that?
Yeah, very much still in that mode. I think it's funny you started out talking about like making wrong decisions and pivoting because I feel like that's been kind of the story of my first year. I kind of had a vision for what launching my business was going to look like, and it actually involved a lot of networking and going to networking events, and then I launched in the middle of COVID, and
Hmm.
there were none. And I'm not as much of a fan of Zoom marketing.
Sure.
It's not. It has a place, it has value, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's where I thrive. So I was like, okay, great. No one's going anywhere. Social media must be where it's at. And I really tried to do the social media thing, and it is not for me. It sucked
Mm.
the life out of me faster than I think anything else I've tried to do in business. And so really spent probably a good 3 to 6 months really trying to move in that direction. And it got to the point that I basically stopped working my business because I just didn't want to. Um,
Mm.
I, I just dreaded doing anything for work other than doing the coaching. Um,
Well,
and
let me
had
stop
to
you
really,
there.
yeah,
How did you, I think that's a great realization, right? I don't want to pounce on the quote unquote failure point, but
right.
failures in business are the way
It
we
is.
grow,
It
right?
is.
And so understanding what is happening is how we make a shift change in going another
Exactly.
direction. What was it that was really just driving at you that it wasn't working?
It was really that realizing I would sit down to do, I had blocks of time in my schedule to do my coaching business, and I just dread those blocks of time.
Mm,
Unless I had a coaching appointment. And
mhm.
I just realized that I was putting so much time and energy into trying to create content and putting myself out there on social media. And I just didn't want to do it.
Mm. And
And I
and did you
just
not
dig
wanna
my
do it
heels in.
because it's not one of your strengths?
Yeah. And that's really what I had to come to is just, it takes me, I think part of it for me is I actually have ADHD, and
Mhm.
trying to sit down and put my thoughts into coherent sentences just takes
Mm.
me a very long time. Um,
Mhm.
the words don't come easily for me. And so I would put so much time into trying to put out content, and I'd read it and I'm like, it just doesn't capture what I'm
Mm.
trying to say. Um, and so I put it out there, but I just wasn't proud of it. And
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
and I'm very much a connector. I always have been.
Mm.
I'm the person I meet someone, I'm like, oh, you have this connection with this other person. I should introduce you. Like, let me get you connected to, this community or that person. And that's always how my brain is working. And so
Mhm.
I just couldn't create that in an online environment. Some people
Yeah,
probably
it's
do. It just didn't work for me. Um,
it's super tough, I think, for people, and you're right. I mean, there's certain ways that we're comfortable, and it sounds like that's not one of your
yeah.
strengths. So what would you say are your strengths?
Yeah. And so a big one is that connecting,
Yeah.
um, where I really do. I just love to connect people, and I love to connect. Oh, and it's funny, it's not even people, it's also ideas and things. And so that's one of my strengths in coaching is um, I just see how things are connected. So someone shares what to them feels very disparate thoughts,
Mhm.
and I see, oh wait, those two things are connected. Let's explore that. And then it just uncovers this awareness of what's going on for them.
So that's interesting. So you're able to not just connect people, but connect dots.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where you discovered that?
Um, so it is one of those strengths that I've had for as long as I can remember. And it's just been over time. So one of my high values is understanding. I blame my mother for that one because it's one of hers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether it's understanding people or systems or myself. And so throughout my life, that value has just always been a part of what I did. And so understanding what I do and why I do it led me to asking, in situations like, what am I good at? Anytime I was kind of looking at a career shift, just asking those questions: what are my strengths? What am I good at? Asking people in my life that have seen me, looking back through what I had done and what I'd felt like I was successful at, and seeing what those, ironically, what those connection points were.
So that's interesting because you're asking yourself
Yeah.
these questions, but you're also asking these questions of other people. Do you
Mhm.
ever find um, that you hesitate to ask other people what your strengths are, or what they see a value in you?
Um, Anymore, no, because I've gotten very
Yeah.
comfortable with it. But I do think there was definitely a time when
Mm.
that was.
So, how do you recommend that somebody listening to the podcast right now on their
Mm,
favorite podcast app or watching us on YouTube? How do you recommend that they get started with the same process that you're now good at? How do you recommend that they start asking others for that feedback?
I think you start with people you're comfortable with.
Mm.
Don't go to the person that intimidates you. You'll never ask.
Hmm.
Go to the people that your good friend, your parents, your siblings, whoever those people are that are the cheerleaders in your life. Um, but that you feel like know you well. You also don't want to go to someone that you're not sure um, know you,
Yeah.
because you're going to question what they have to say. So I would start with those people that really know you, that you feel like, and know you today. I wouldn't necessarily go to your childhood best friend that you're occasionally in touch with, but hasn't talked to you in 20 years.
Hmm.
Start with those
Yeah.
people that,
A Facebook friend doesn't
yeah,
necessarily make someone know you well, right?
exactly.
And so, really, it's just asking about them. Now, do you ask very pointed questions, or do you just maybe ask questions like, "Hey, I'm doing some self discovery. I want to learn more about myself, and I was just hoping to see if you wouldn't mind giving me a few attributes about myself that you see." Is
Yeah.
that
And
just how you would do it?
it kind of depended on the context. I've done it so many times over the years, and sometimes I've done it formally, like as part of a, personality assessment or something.
Hmm.
And then other times more informally. And so if I'm wrestling through a specific, like, hey, am I good at this? I'll probably ask more pointed questions like, hey, I'm feeling like maybe I might be good at this. What's been your experience with me in this area?
Hmm. I love that question. What's been your experience with me in this area? So that's a massive takeaway to our listeners right now. Is the way you frame the question is, and you can lead them into the direction of the category you want, or you
Mm-hmm.
don't even have to. You can just say, "What's your experience with me?"
Yeah.
But I like the way you framed it. Is what's your experience with me as it relates to this? Um, that's powerful. That's not even something I've ever done, and I think that's the thing. I've been asking the guests on this season's podcast. Um, it's interesting. How often do we sit still, almost like in a meditative state?
Mm,
How often do we sit still and think about what our strengths are?
yeah. Not very often.
No, and it makes you wonder, shouldn't I do that more? And on the last episode, with Serafina, we were talking about how she's like, well, yeah, I don't do that enough. And I'm like, no, David Verdon in episode 1 of season 2 said the same thing. I don't do that. I should start to do that. And then I told Serafina, I don't do it either. And she's like, okay, so we're all in the same boat. Let's all just start doing it. And that's the thing. Like, could you imagine how much better we could be as business owners if we just took a moment to be still?
Mm,
Sit on the deck, on the patio, on the porch, wherever it might be. Just be still for a moment and think, what are we amazingly good at?
Mm,
It would help us dial in more about our strengths.
hmm.
And the more we know our strengths, the more we also know what our weaknesses are and or
Yeah.
things to avoid, right?
Yeah.
I imagine this is part of the problem with the type of clients that you work with and helping them make decisions and get into a rhythm. The reason they're stuck is because they don't know what they're good at, right?
That is definitely a big piece of it. I think we've just gotten to a point in our culture um, where there's just a lack of awareness that I think does come from just this sheer busyness.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily, it can just be the reality of we spend a ton of time on social media instead of, um, in conversation or in study or what, it's
Hmm.
not, we just live at a very fast pace, but that's contrary to stopping and being still. And I think for me, actually, I'm a person of faith, and I think a lot of these practices that I now apply in business came out of growing up in that context because it was a place that encouraged stopping and being still and a certain level of self-reflection. Um, and I think that has really helped me in this area. And it is very much what I see when I talk to my clients of just they've never stopped and stepped back. A lot of people go into business because they love what they do, and they
Hmm.
haven't really thought about what it means to run a business while doing what they do. And so it takes that certain level of stopping and stepping back to be able to move forward. And and that includes knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're not good at.
Hmm.
I think the other two pieces that are big are just knowing what your vision and values are.
Mm. Yeah,
If
that
you
way
don't
you don't
have,
compromise, right?
yeah, if you don't have those four pieces in your view as you're making decisions, you're going to go off the rails and you're going to end up like I did, running a
Hmm.
business that you hate because it's
Mm.
not in alignment with who you are and what you care about.
Uh, Is it easy? I mean, you sound like you've practiced, the sort of strength stuff before, and I say practice. I mean, you're just
Yeah.
more aware of it. You said
Yeah.
the word self awareness. Um, is it easy for you to recognize your strengths?
Again, I would say now it is. I
Hmm.
don't think it has been. I'm someone who has always taken what other people said about me more loudly than myself.
Mm.
Um, but it's funny. A big thing that people often say is that I'm highly organized,
Hmm.
which is actually not true at all.
Hmm.
um, that whole ADHD thing does not lend itself to organization. Um, However, because I make connections,
Hmm.
systems come very easily to me. And so
Oh.
to the outside world, I look organized, but they don't, it's because they don't see the internal chaos
Oh,
and
you're just a
everything.
hot
Like,
mess inside,
yeah.
huh?
But to the outside world, because I'm good at putting systems in place,
Hmm.
it's like I know that about myself. And so I know. And so, I can remember people all growing up would compliment me on my organization and, oh, you're so good at this. And it was just this like, I thought they couldn't come up with anything I was good at.
So you're self-aware
And
now, right? And
yeah,
you're really in tune with self-awareness. It's
but I
interesting
wasn't
because
always.
I right, that's right. So I like to say it's the 20-year overnight success, Katie.
Yeah.
Right? We always think that the other person's got it great and
Yep.
that they were an overnight success and they don't see how the sausage was made for the last 20 years.
Right.
Right? And so you've worked on your own personal ability to be self-aware. And you brought this up earlier where it's just like we're not nearly everything's so fast-paced. We're not even self-aware of who we are and what we're doing every day.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, the more self-aware we can be as business owners,
Yeah.
the more likely and the more quickly we'll get to the point of knowing our strengths,
Yeah.
as well as many, many, many other things
Yeah.
in business, right? I mean,
Yes.
outsourcing, planning, and organizational stuff. If that,
Right.
I mean, I. It's interesting. I'm 47 years old. today. At the time this podcast airs, I'll be 48. But interestingly enough, I became more and more and more self-aware after I
Mhm.
turned 40.
Mm,
And I am hyper self-aware now about many, many things. But
yep.
funny enough, I'm learning areas in which I'm not self-aware because I observe other business owners and see how they
Mm,
run their business and work in their business. I have a
mhm.
good friend who I feel like is super hyper focused during the day when he works. He's so zoned in that um you can't even have a conversation. And it's
Yep.
almost awkward, but he gets
Yeah.
more work done than any business owner I've ever seen in my life. And he's
Yeah.
just one of those people that has the ability to zone in, and he's self-aware of blocking out the other stuff that pulls him away from the task that he needs to get done.
Right.
And then he's so hyper focused, he can get them done in a quicker time frame because he doesn't have all those distractions that we all talk about as business owners. You can't multitask, you can't be on a networking call looking at your
Yeah.
phone, or on a Zoom call looking at another screen. People know you're moving
Mhm.
screens around. We see
Yeah.
that, right? And
Yep.
so it's so interesting. I'm way more self-aware now than I was 8 years ago. And
Mm,
I know that I'm going to be even more self-aware a year from now than I am now.
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I think self-awareness is a strong attribute into running an effective business.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about running your business. What are the struggles at year one? I mean, you talked a little bit about starts and stops and different ways you were
Yeah.
going with things. What's the biggest challenge for you as a small business owner these days, like today?
Yeah. I think um, one of my biggest challenges is still just figuring out getting myself in front of people. Um,
Hmm.
it's nice now that there's more networking um, to just be in front of people, but really, what are I think somewhat figuring out where my clients hang out. It's funny,
Mm.
it feels like I should know because I'm in my ideal client, actually in both categories. I'm a parent and an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
but definitely a lot of like, oh wait, where do we hang out? Like,
Yeah,
where do I
right.
meet other parents? Where do I meet other entrepreneurs? And I think that's definitely a big challenge. Just a personal challenge, I think, that probably a lot of entrepreneurs face is just all the different hats you wear.
Yeah.
And what hat do I need to be wearing when? And even kind of what you were talking about of focusing in on the hat that I'm wearing at this moment.
Hmm.
Um, you know, one of the big changes I've made this summer is really having some more defined blocks of time.
So you do time blocking in your calendar?
It's not always in my calendar, but it's time blocked. Sometimes it's just in my head. Um,
Uh, how does that work? That doesn't work, does it?
uh,
Because if the
I,
time block for me was in my head, I would just ignore it. Like
oh,
it's not in the how does your brain know that that time block is there?
I'm very visual, so I have mentally put it on my calendar if I don't physically. So there's a mental picture of
Yeah,
a calendar in my head
yeah, very
that is blocked.
interesting. That's so cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I wonder how many other business owners do a similar thing. So if you're
Yeah.
doing sort of, I'll call it mental time blocking, then let us know in the comments here on YouTube. I want to know, like, how many people are doing that versus actually the physical calendar blocking. For me, seem to have the physical calendar blocking, but
Mhm.
then the other problem that comes in with that, Katie, is that when I block the whole day off, now I get up in the morning, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's not the day I wanted.
Yeah.
That's not the day I wanted today. I want more free time. I
Yeah.
want the freedom that I wanted. I don't want this whole thing blocked. That's no fun, you
Yeah.
know?
And so that's actually a funny part of my story is I did used to block everything in my calendar. So I actually was just diagnosed with ADHD this year.
Mm,
And so that has been a really big learning curve. But I realized in getting that diagnosis that I had tried to over-organize and over-schedule to try to rein in the mental chaos. And it was like this unhelpful coping mechanism. And so I had to learn to live in a certain level of freedom. And so that's when I actually stopped using my physical calendar so much, because it would create too much structure and I'd feel trapped. And then I would rebel against that, like my own schedule. And so it's been learning this process this year of learning how my brain actually works and how to work with that instead of against it. And so it's been a lot less this structure blocking, but more, and especially as a mom and a business owner, when I'm working from home, I have to have a higher level of flexibility because I have to be available to my kids. And I found myself just getting frustrated that they were interrupting me and this was my work time and when it was on my calendar. And so I had to let go of some of that and really put focused work when I'm at the office, and then more just like responding to emails or things that didn't take as much, kind of diving down in when I'm home and have to have an ear on the kids. And so that's been, I feel like I found a good rhythm now, but challenge from the last year, that was a big challenge for me.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about startup mode in your business. I always like to ask our guests, this idea of software, right? What software they use in their business that if I walked in and took away, they'd be mad? What's a game changer software that you recommend that other small business owners take a look at? Tool, tip, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So I actually don't use a lot.
So do you use a day planner? How do you do the calendar?
My calendar is just my Outlook.
Okay.
Well, actually, probably Office 365 would be one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So that you live on that then.
Yeah. That is my calendar. It's my email. It's, I use a lot of Excel, Word. Probably everything. The only other one might be, I use Adobe InDesign for
for
everything
design
I
work.
put together.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine
my business contract is in InDesign.
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching a design program. I haven't touched design. The closest thing I'll do to a design program is Canva or something like that.
Yes.
I'm just not.
I do use Canva a lot.
Yeah. Are you a reader?
I am an avid reader.
You're an avid reader. So, wondering what business book you've read, whether it be over the course of the last year or even prior to that you feel like other people listening need to pick up, get their hands on, because it could be a game changer for their business. What book would that be?
So for people that have anyone working with them, Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Okay. Wow. You're very strong about that. You rattled that one off.
Completely revolutionized my understanding of teams and how to have healthy team relationships. I actually read it about a year and a half before we had a challenging team situation actually at our church. I'm a volunteer at our church. Yeah. And I can't count the number of times I went back to that book walking through that season. And but just his ability to articulate the foundations of relationship as it relates. I mean, it's true across the board. I honestly, my husband and I use it in our marriage. We use it. I use it in friendships, but particularly in the business setting.
That's great. Yeah, so we'll make sure we link to that in the show notes, everybody. You can get the link right in the show notes on the website, massbusinesspodcast.com. And we're definitely going to be linking to that and to Office 365. For those of you, I mean, obviously you can Google it, but we'll link to it just in case you're on the show notes. And speaking of links, Katie, it's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. If any of the listeners on the favorite podcast app or watching on YouTube want to get in touch with you, they want to talk about coaching, they want to talk about networking, they want to talk about being diagnosed with ADHD recently, doesn't matter what it is, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything is on my website, which is coachingtoinspire.co. It is .co. It's not missing the M.
Yeah.
And then my email is just katie@coachingtoinspire.com.
Very cool. And so we'll make sure we have all those links in the show notes as well. It's been great talking to you. I'm so glad we were able to meet through networking and have the connections that we have. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing your knowledge, your understanding, your vulnerabilities, your authenticity with the audience. Being in business a year, obviously around business for 20 years, but your own coaching business for the last year, started during COVID, pivoted quite a few times. And up and running, strong, ready and raring to go, headed out in the right direction. I think it's fantastic. We've all been there, and I think there's a lot of lessons that small business owners can gain from the pivots that you made in the middle of the pandemic, and I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so for those of you listening, again, we'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know what you got to do. You got to smash that subscribe button. We're trying to get those likes up there and those subscribes up there so that everybody else in Massachusetts gets to see this podcast as well. As I always like to say, and I end every video, don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you. Take care, everybody.
I'm waking up this morning, gonna grab myself a smile.
Thank you for listening to the Mass Business Podcast, where we focus on growing a small business and understanding networking and referrals. Don't forget to like on your favorite platform and share out this podcast. This show has been produced by Heather Grant, music by Celtic Kelly, all rights reserved. I'm your host, professional speaker, author, and word-of-mouth referral consultant, Matt Ward. Don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you.
I'm feeling all right. High five the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. High five the world. Make a difference today. High five the world. What a thing to say. Do you feel what I'm telling you?